Harlem knows a song without a tune. The rhythm's there, but the melody's bare. Harlem knows a night without a moon. The stars are where?
Langston Hughes was born to a family of abolitionists. The name James Mercer Langston Hughes was given to him after his grandfather. In 1947, he moved to Harlem, New York. He's quoted as saying, "I'd rather live in a 3-floor walk-up in Harlem than a mansion in Westchester."
Langston lived in this house from 1947 to 1967. Langston's mother and Toy Harper were best of friends. So when Langston moved into New York City and then Harlem, he looked up the Harpers, and when they purchased this house, they purchased it together. Langston occupied the top floor for both his living quarters and his office, and the Harpers lived on the rear floor of this parlor floor. The way I became curator of the Langston Hughes house is that I purchased the building with my wife in 1985. I knew it was Langston Hughes' house when there was a lot of articles, furniture, photographs, books, baby grand piano. When I came into a place of great history like this, I didn't have to think about how important it was to work at preserving things.
My late husband, George Houston Bass, George was Langston Hughes' secretary from 1959 to 1964 and lived with Mr. Hughes on 127th Street. This was a pulsating, very dynamic household. George used to tell a story about going on one of Mr. Hughes' wonderful walks through Harlem. The walks were very much a part of his evening ritual. That was part of how he wound down the day. It was a joyous point of the day to get out into the community and go and say hello to Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, or go down the street and be quiet and not announce that he was coming, so he could really just see Harlem. George said to Mr. Hughes, "Mr. Hughes, did you see so-and-so and so-and-so and so?" Mr. Hughes said, "No, I didn't see that." "Well, Mr. Hughes, certainly you saw so-and-so, so-and-so crossing the street." "Didn't see that." "Well, Mr. Hughes, what did you see?" "I saw everything you didn't see."
There is a comfort walking among your people. There are 1,000 stories. There are so many ways to relate to people you love. And he loved black people. And I think Langston, with his travels, his adapting of Cuban works and translations, his vast experience in Russia and other places, made him a very unique Harlemite.
Langston was the bubble in the belly of Harlem, the most enthusiastic, wide open, happy, humorous, grinning person you could ever meet.
Well, I feel like he's my own grandfather smiling down at me. I think he's vital to Harlem and the arts abroad.
I thought he was very handsome. He was outgoing and he was pleasant to be around, and he laughed a lot. He liked to laugh, and he liked to make people laugh.
He looked at life kind of with a wink in his eye. I didn't know him well enough to know exactly what kind of man he was, and yet I know him precisely what kind of man he was because his work showed it. I know that he was a caring man. I know that he was a politically astute. I know that he was socially aware. I know that he was a lover of people and places and sounds. He reminds me, I think, of a big ear. He went around the world, especially in Harlem, and he heard everything.
I am a Negro, black as the night is black, black like the depths of my Africa. I've been a slave. Caesar told me to keep his his doorsteps clean. I brushed the boots of Washington. I've been a worker. Under my hands, the pyramids arose. I made the mortar for the Woolworth building. I've been a singer. All the way from Africa to Georgia, I carried my sorrow songs. I made ragtime. I've been a victim. The Belgians cut off my hands in the Congo. They lynch me still in Mississippi. I am a Negro, black as the night is black, black like the depths of my Africa.
Langston Hughes attended Columbia University for a year to study engineering. He left because he was bored and lonely in the white academic world, but his nightly visits down the hill made him fall in love with the excitement, rhythms, and syncopation of Harlem and its people.
This Royal typewriter was one of 3 typewriters that we found upstairs in the study. Just about positive that they were used by Langston Hughes. Langston typed with just his 2 index fingers. So you can imagine him sitting there just with his 2 fingers just wailing away at these typewriters. This was up on the top floor. We have moved down to this floor so people could get a chance to see it when they're in the house. I think it would be kind of fun for a kid to come here, or an adult, and actually type a letter using Langston's typewriter. The typewriter of a famous writer, I think, is it's a great thing to have.
If Mr. Hughes changed even a comma or a semicolon, it meant the secretary had to retype the entire poem from beginning to end so Mr. Hughes could get a clear vision of how does that look now that I have changed it.
These things are like little clues of things that happened in Langston's life. Harper's preserved it. This is the deed for the property. A lot of people aren't sure if Langston rented a room or if he lived here. It clearly shows that the building was purchased by Langston Hughes, Toy Harper, and Emerson Harper together.
Mr. Hughes kept track of every little thing he wrote on. In his own lifetime, he realized he was a mythic man. So he saved grocery lists, and he saved any place he had jotted down some notes, and any place there were reviews in newspapers and magazines.
This one I particularly like because Langston had all these postcards that he would write when he was traveling and send them back to the Harpers, particularly Toy Harper. And this was when he was in Florida visiting Mary McLeod Bethune. He talks about also meeting up with Ralph Bunche. It's clearly told story where he got a ride from Florida to New York City with Mary McLeod Bethune, and during that ride she talked to him about going on a speaking tour of the South. There's a photograph of Langston Hughes standing surrounded by children, and the story is that the children were kind of pulling up plants that the Harpers and Langston were trying to get established in the front yard here. So Langston's strategy for dealing with this situation was to involve the children in planting the garden. I've heard this from neighborhood people. Each flower was given the name of the child that planted it. He personalized things and he connected people to it in a very special way. The really last significant thing that I found in this house, and this is after being here maybe 12 or 14 years, and going through a box of wood that I found that was in the basement. And it was very late at night, and I was down there by myself, and I'm picking wood out of a box and saying to myself, you know, you really have lost it. You're crazy. You're sitting here. Why are you going through this old box of wood? And I then put my hand on the metal rod that was attached to the Children's Garden sign. I found the sign of the Children's Garden in the bottom of that box of wood down in the basement. What the photo doesn't show, and the real thing does, is that there's names on the front and names on the back of that sign.
He was just there, he was just available, like air, like sunshine, like water, like spring, like happiness. You know, like all the things that make life worthwhile.
Mr. Hughes was very keen on honoring people's birthdays. So at the beginning of the month, he would write out all his birthday cards for that month. And in the place where the stamp was to be, you were told when to mail this particular card, because it couldn't arrive too early and it couldn't arrive late. And so that was a way that Mr. Hughes maintained his bond with all the friends who were then, his family.
Although he often wrote while he was depressed and lonely, Langston loved to make people laugh. He was nicknamed the Poet Laureate of Harlem. Langston was a part of the scene. Langston was a part of what it was I came to this community to get. So Langston met me at the border and gave me the essence out of which I built myself. I guess he was sort of like an ambassador, going from one end of the community to the other, making people welcome. He said, come on in, let's sit down, have a good time. Langston gave me my hip boots. Told me, wear these, my son, because you're going to be walking through a whole lot of pool out there. So put your boots on, be hipped, be booted.
He had an innate sense of something very special about the African American person in this world. This was a new set of people. We need to be reminded of who we are. He heard another rhythm that hadn't been on earth before, because there hadn't been this uprooted people from a continent like Africa yanked out and put into a land, and then mixed again with the Irish and the French and the West Indians and the Jews and the Poles. We take this and make our palaces and our glory. He spelled us. And I very well picture Langston in a nightclub listening to the music and hearing the words, because there is an Afro-American sensibility, and he put it down.
Talking about 7th Avenue and Sugar Hill, the New Savoy.
I ran away from home in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1934, just after finishing high school. With a prize fighter, I only knew 18 days, and I came to New York. Harlem in the 30s and the 40s, it was a swinging place. We had the Cotton Club, which we couldn't go in as patrons, and we had Apollo, Small Paradise. From the classics to the blues to Pigmeat Markham, Ethel Waters, Lena Horne. I mean, just rich with talent. Just so much was going on in Harlem.